Okay, so today we're going to be talking about graphing quadratics in standard form. This is where you have, the ax squared plus bx plus c, all that stuff. That's the standard form. What we used when we were doing the quadratic formula, it was the standard form. Now, to graph things in the standard form, we need to find two things. We need to find the axis of symmetry, and we need to find the vertex. Okay? So to find the axis of symmetry, there's a bit of a formula. It's going to be, if you think of a parabola, it's a U shape, something like this, right? Which is symmetrical. So you want the line that would cut it in half. That's the axis of symmetry. So that is a vertical line, so you're going to get x equals, and then the formula for finding the axis of symmetry is negative b over 2a. Now, if you think of it, the quadratic formula was negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right? Now, this square root of b squared minus 4ac is what we call the determinant. That tells me how many solutions we have and stuff like that. But if we take out the determinant here, we're left with negative b over 2a. That's your axis of symmetry. That's what you need to find in order to find the axis of symmetry. So if we look at number 2 here, we have y equals negative 2x squared. Let me zoom in here a little bit so you can see a little bit better. Okay, we have y equals negative 2x squared plus 8x minus 9. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the axis of symmetry. So I'm going to set up x equals, and I'm going to find b. b is 8. And it's negative b, right? So b negative 8 over 2a. 2a, so again, it's negative b over 2a. 2a, a is negative 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. So negative 8 over negative 4, the axis of symmetry is going to be x equals positive 2. So right here, this vertical line right here is going to be the vertical line that cuts my parabola in half. Okay? The next thing I do is I'm going to set up a table. Okay? The vertex is the point in which your line is starting, right? So it's right there, right dab in the middle. So if I know my axis of symmetry is, and let me write down my two answers here. The axis is x is equal to 2. The vertex, if I know that the vertex is going to be on this line of symmetry, then I know the x-coordinate has to be 2. So I know this much of my vertex. It's the point where your parabola comes to a point. It's your min or max, depending on if your parabola opens up or opens down. But I don't know my y value, so this is why I have the table over here. And I'm going to put down 5 y values. Okay? The x value that I know, I'm going to put right here in the middle. And then I'm going to put the two numbers before it and the two numbers after it. And then to figure out my y value, I'm going to plug it in to my equation here. So I'm going to take 2, and I'm going to plug it in because that's my vertex point right there, right? I'm going to plug in 2 into the equation. So on my calculator, I go negative 2 parentheses 2. That's where the x is normally, right? I use a parenthesis every time I plug it in. Squared plus 8 times 2 minus 9. And that's going to give me a negative 1. So my vertex is going to be at that point 2, negative 1. So that's my vertex. And then I'm going to find the next point. So we're going to plug in 3. So I'm just going to copy what I did and put in 3 for the 2. Okay, which would give me negative 3. So at 3, it's going to be negative 3. Okay, that's fine. And then when I plug in 4, I would get negative 9. Right, so I know this much so far. So I know it's 2, negative 1. 3 is negative 3. And then 4 is negative 9. It's off the graph over here. Okay. Now I can tell you exactly what 1 and 0 are going to be before I even plug it in. But let's plug it in just so you guys can see. So if I plug in 1, I'm going to get... So before I plug it in and push enter, I have it entered here, right? Before I push enter, I'm going to tell you it's going to be negative 3. And it's negative 3. How did I know that? Because parabolas are symmetric, which means that if this is one side of the parabola, the other side should be doing the exact same thing with the y values, right? So negative 3, 0, I can guarantee you is negative 9. In fact, if we look at it, it's pretty obvious to see. 0 squared times negative 2 is 0. And then plus 8 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 9 is negative 9. All right? So 0, negative 9, it's off the graph. Parabola would look something like this. A little bit more of a pointier parabola. But that's what all you're doing basically is you find the axis of symmetry. That gives you the x value that you start with for your vertex. And then you just pick the values before and after it, plug them into the equation. And that's how you graph these in standard form. Okay, let me do one more just to make sure you got it. So let's look at this one. So we'll start by finding the axis of symmetry. Okay, so I'm going to find the axis of symmetry and I need to find the vertex. Those are the two things I need to find. So axis of symmetry would be x is equal to negative b over 2a. Negative b, negative 12 would be positive 12. And then a is negative 1, so I'd be dividing it by a negative 2. Because 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, which is going to be 6. So x, negative 6. X is equal to negative 6. So that tells me that the x coordinates is going to be negative 6, because my line of symmetry is right here at negative 6. Okay, and then I plug them into my table here, and I'm going to have 5 values, negative 6, and then the two numbers before it, so negative 5, negative 4, and negative 7 and negative 8. And then when I plug it into my calculator, I have parentheses, negative 6, whoops, I missed the negative in front, negative parentheses, negative 6, squared, minus 12x, or minus 12 times negative 6, and then minus 39. Gives me negative 3. Okay, so when we're at the vertex, it's negative 6, negative 3. That's my vertex. And then I'm going to do the two numbers before it. So negative 5. Just going to hurry and copy and put them in here. It gives me negative 4, and negative 4 gives me negative 7, which tells me that negative 7 would also be negative 4, and negative 8 would be negative 7. And then when I graph those, negative 6, negative 3 is my vertex. Negative 5, negative 4, and negative 4, negative 7 is half my parabola right there. Okay, and these are kind of like vertical square roots if you think about it. And then the other side was negative 7, negative 4, and negative 8, negative 7. So, looks like that. And that's how you graph from the standard form.